Life today feels overwhelming for almost everyone. You wake up with a mind already full of worries. You think about the expectations on you, the pressure to achieve more, to look successful, to stay happy all the time, to prove something to someone. And in the middle of all this, you find yourself giving too much importance to everything. Every comment people make, every mistake you commit, every comparison your mind creates. You stress over things that don't matter. You chase goals you don't even want. You feel guilty for choosing yourself. You worry about opinions that add zero value to your life. And when you try to keep everyone happy, when you try to avoid every mistake, when you try to be perfect, when you try to fix everything, you eventually feel empty and tired. You feel like you're drowning in responsibilities, expectations, and thoughts that never seem to stop. This book is for that moment. The moment when you realize you're caring too much about the wrong things. This is the book that helps you break free from overthinking. The book that helps you stop living for approval. The book that teaches you where your energy truly belongs. Mark Manson takes you on a journey that is honest, raw, and surprisingly liberating. He doesn't tell you to stop caring about everything. He teaches you how to care correctly, how to choose the struggles worth fighting for, and how to let go of the rest. Welcome to Top Summary, where you learn from the world's most powerful books, transform your life with clarity, and see your growth unfold. If you're new here, we bring you inspiring book summaries and practical lessons to help you grow faster and live better. This book begins with a message that hits hard. You have limited F***CKS to give. Your time, your energy, your attention, all limited. But the world pulls these limited resources in 100 directions. Social media wants your attention. People want your validation. Society wants your obedience. And your own mind wants comfort, praise, perfection. But the truth is, you cannot care about everything. And the moment you accept that, your life becomes lighter. Mark Manson introduces the idea that the way to live a meaningful life is not by trying to avoid problems, but by choosing the right ones. He explains how we live in a culture that worships positivity. Everywhere you look, someone is telling you to stay happy, stay positive, stay motivated. But this constant pressure to feel good makes you feel worse. Because real life is not always positive. Real growth happens when you face your problems, not when you hide behind motivation. Manson reminds us that avoiding pain only creates more pain, and suppressing emotions only increases the intensity of those emotions. He begins by showing how our obsession with extraordinary lives is destroying our ability to appreciate ordinary joys. Most people today feel like failures not because they have failed, but because they expect life to always be perfect. Social media shows only success, luxury, and achievement. And when you compare your everyday life to someone else's highlight reel, you feel like you're not enough. But Manson says the truth is simple. Most of life is ordinary. And extraordinary success happens only when someone chooses a meaningful struggle and sticks with it for years. He teaches a powerful principle. When you stop caring about proving something, you finally become free to grow. For example, a student who constantly fears being judged will never ask questions, will never experiment, will never fail, and so will never grow. But a student who doesn't care about looking foolish will learn faster. Similarly, someone who is too focused on being liked will never have honest relationships. But someone who cares less about approval will attract authentic connections. Manson emphasizes that caring less is not about being irresponsible or indifferent. It is about clarity. When you stop giving energy to meaningless things, you have more strength to fight for what matters. Your health, your relationships, your dreams, your learning, your peace. He introduces another core idea. Problems give your life meaning. Many people spend their entire lives trying to escape discomfort. They want a life with no challenges, no failures, no uncertainty. But a life without problems is a life without purpose. For example, building a career you love will give you stress, but it also gives you pride. Raising a family brings responsibilities, but also brings deep love. Growing your body in the gym brings pain, but also strength. The question is not how to avoid problems, but how to choose ones that are worthy of you. This idea clears a lot of confusion, because most people think happiness comes from eliminating struggle. But Manson explains that happiness comes from choosing better struggles. When your struggles are meaningful, your life feels meaningful. When your struggles are empty, your life feels empty. He also challenges the idea that you should trust your feelings. Feelings are often misleading. You might feel insecure even when you are capable. You might feel jealous even when there is nothing to worry about. You might feel offended over something minor. If you let emotions control your life, you'll give too many F***CKS to the wrong situations. Manson suggests taking responsibility for your emotions, not letting them decide for you. When you pause, reflect, and respond instead of reacting, you make better choices. As the book continues, Manson introduces the power of personal responsibility. He says you cannot control everything that happens to you, but you can control how you interpret it, how you respond to it, and what meaning you give it. For example, if someone disrespects you, you cannot control their behavior, but you can choose whether you let it ruin your peace or whether you set a boundary and move on. If you lose a job, you may not control the situation, but you can control your attitude and your actions after it. Taking responsibility doesn't mean blaming yourself. It means empowering yourself. And this is where you begin to understand the real message of this book. You cannot change your life unless you choose what to care about. Your priorities decide your direction. Your values shape your choices. Your mindset controls your peace. As we continue deeper into this summary, we'll explore how Manson reveals destructive values people often chase without realizing it. The need for constant pleasure, the need to always be right, the need for absolute certainty, the need for perfection, and the need for approval. These values silently control people's decisions, relationships, and happiness. Before we move forward, here's a quick reminder. If you're enjoying our top summaries and storytelling, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this with someone who might need it today. We've got some powerful bonus action items for you at the end, so keep listening. Now, let's get back to the summary. Manson now explains how choosing better values transforms your life. Values like honesty, resilience, discipline, responsibility, and curiosity help you create a stronger, simpler, and more meaningful way of living. When a student chooses the value of learning instead of the value of looking intelligent, their life changes. When an entrepreneur chooses long-term growth instead of short-term validation, their business changes. When a person chooses authenticity instead of approval, their relationships change. He gives examples of how better values reduce anxiety. Imagine you constantly try to impress people. You dress for others, speak for others, act for others. You overthink every decision. You drain your energy. But when you value self-respect and truth, you no longer bend yourself to fit into someone else's expectations. Your confidence grows naturally. You stop chasing love and start attracting it. This forms the foundation of the book's message. Happiness is not found in caring about more things, but in caring about fewer things, the right things. As we move deeper into Mark Manson's ideas, the message becomes clearer. Life becomes easier when you stop chasing things that have no meaning. Most people spend years trying to avoid the truth that life is uncertain, uncomfortable, and unpredictable. But the more you avoid these truths, the more they control you. Manson encourages us to look directly at the uncomfortable parts of life instead of running from them. Because only then do you learn, adapt, and grow. He introduces a thought that many people don't want to accept. You are not special. And this is liberating. Modern culture constantly tells you that you must be exceptional, that you must achieve something outstanding to be worthy. But this expectation traps people in a constant race. They feel inadequate because they compare their everyday life with someone else's extraordinary success. Manson argues that the belief that you're supposed to be extraordinary is exactly what stops you from living a peaceful life. When you accept that you're ordinary, like everyone else, your expectations fall into place. You no longer feel pressure to be perfect. You stop chasing fame, validation, and constant achievement. You begin to value everyday moments again. He explains that the pressure to be special leads to two extremes: entitlement or self-hatred. Entitlement makes you believe the world owes you something. Self-hatred makes you believe you owe the world something extraordinary. Both are illusions. A balanced life comes from accepting that you don't need to prove anything to anyone. You just need to focus on what truly matters to you. This idea naturally leads to another core principle of the book. You are always choosing what you give importance to. Every moment, consciously or unconsciously, you choose what matters. You choose which thoughts deserve your attention. You choose which problems you want to work on. You choose which emotions to prioritize. And these choices shape your life. When you realize this, you stop blaming external conditions and start taking control of your inner world. Manson then dives into a powerful insight. Responsibility and fault are not the same thing. Something may not be your fault, but it's still your responsibility to deal with it. For example, if someone breaks your trust, it may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility to heal, to set boundaries, and to decide what happens next. If you were raised in a difficult environment, it is not your fault, but it becomes your responsibility to learn, grow, and break old patterns. This shift in thinking makes you stronger. It gives you your power back. It frees you from the feeling that life is happening to you. With this understanding, Manson invites you to look at how you interpret the events of your life. You may not be able to control everything, but you can control the meaning you attach to everything. And when you consciously choose meanings that empower you, you build resilience. When you choose meanings that weaken you, you feel helpless. Two people can go through the same situation and come out completely differently, not because of the event itself, but because of the meaning they chose. One sees rejection as proof of failure. The other sees rejection as redirection. One sees a breakup as an end. The other sees it as a beginning. The event didn't change, the meaning did. Manson shares the idea that growth comes from consistently choosing difficult but meaningful actions over easy but empty ones. Most people choose comfort, even when comfort destroys them. They choose distraction over progress, pleasure over discipline, approval over truth. But the people who grow, the ones who build meaningful lives, choose discomfort when it aligns with their values. They choose honesty even when it's awkward. They choose effort even when it's tiring. They choose responsibility even when it's unfair. These choices are what separate a life of purpose from a life of regret. And just when the ideas start to feel heavy, Manson brings humor into the mix. He explains how people often believe their emotions deserve their full attention. But emotions are simply signals, not commands. You might feel angry, but that doesn't mean someone wronged you. You might feel anxious, but that doesn't mean danger is present. You might feel insecure, but that doesn't mean you're incapable. Emotions provide information, but you choose whether to obey them. When you stop giving emotional reactions too much importance, you stop being controlled by impulses. You react with maturity, not panic. This is where Manson talks about the value of saying no. Most people struggle with rejection, either giving it or receiving it. But every meaningful life requires clear boundaries. When you say yes to everything, you lose yourself. You drain your time. You scatter your energy. But when you start saying no to the things that don't align with your values, your life becomes focused and peaceful. Whether you're a student protecting your study time or an adult protecting your mental health, saying no is an act of self-respect. Manson explains that relationships especially require boundaries. A relationship without boundaries becomes controlling, draining, or chaotic. Healthy relationships are built onto people who take responsibility for their emotions, speak honestly, respect limits, and allow each other to grow. Toxic relationships emerge when responsibility is avoided, blame is constant, and boundaries are ignored. One of the most powerful decisions you can make in life is choosing who you allow into your emotional space. When you stop giving your energy to people who drain you, your peace increases. He goes on to discuss the importance of truth, especially uncomfortable truth. Many people lie to themselves to avoid facing reality. They lie about why they fail. They lie about why they procrastinate. They lie about what they really want. But these lies only create long-term suffering. When you face the truth, even the painful truth, you give yourself the chance to grow. You stop pretending and start evolving. You stop running and start improving. This brings us to another deep insight in the book. You are always wrong, and so is everyone else. It sounds strange, but it's actually freeing. Manson explains that humans are wired to misunderstand things, create assumptions, misinterpret events, and form imperfect beliefs. Accepting this reduces ego. It stops you from holding rigid opinions. It encourages humility. When you accept that you don't know everything, you become curious. You listen better. You learn more. You judge less. You stop needing to win arguments all the time. And you become open to growth instead of being trapped by your own certainties. Manson highlights that uncertainty is not a weakness. It's a doorway to learning. People who think they already know everything cannot improve. But people who accept uncertainty stay flexible and wise. They ask better questions. They explore more possibilities. They adapt quickly when life changes. Uncertainty creates space for growth. As we move toward the final part of this audiobook, Manson prepares us for some of the deepest messages in the book. He starts talking about death, not to scare you, but to show you where real meaning comes from. The awareness of your limited time is what makes your choices powerful. The acceptance that you will not live forever is what makes your values matter. When you understand that life is temporary, you stop wasting it on meaningless battles, temporary approvals, and shallow goals. You begin to choose love, purpose, kindness, discipline, and honesty. You choose depth over noise. We'll explore these profound ideas in the final part of the summary, along with the closing lessons and action steps that will help you apply this book to your everyday life. As the book reaches its final and most profound message, Mark Manson brings everything together by reminding us that life becomes meaningful only when we confront the reality of our own limitations. We often run from this truth. We distract ourselves with entertainment, chase validation, avoid difficult conversations, and postpone the things that matter. But the moment you acknowledge that your time is limited, your priorities become clear. You stop giving your energy to things, people, and thoughts that drain you. You start choosing what genuinely matters to your soul. Manson tells the story of a musician whose early career failed, who spent years in frustration, and who eventually discovered that meaning doesn't come from fame or attention. It comes from doing what feels true, even when no one is watching. This reflection leads to one of the book's deepest insights. When you stop trying to be extraordinary and focus on what feels meaningful, you find peace. Life stops feeling like a competition. It becomes an experience, raw, simple, human. He emphasizes that avoiding pain doesn't protect you. It imprisons you. Every beautiful part of life is tied to some form of discomfort. Love makes you vulnerable. Success exposes you to criticism. Growth requires failing repeatedly. Courage demands fear. Peace demands letting go. When you stop resisting these truths, life stops feeling like a burden. You become lighter, more grounded, more aware. And so, Manson makes a bold but liberating statement. The quality of your life depends on the quality of your struggles. If you choose meaningful struggles, your life becomes meaningful. If you choose shallow struggles, your life becomes shallow. The choice is yours every single day. This is why understanding your values is essential. Values guide your attention. Values guide your decisions. Values decide which problems you willingly embrace. When your values are weak or unhealthy, your entire life feels unstable. But when your values are strong, every challenge becomes purposeful. As the book nears its conclusion, Manson asks you to reflect on the legacy of your life, not the material things you will leave behind, but the emotional footprint you create, the way you make people feel, the lessons you teach through the way you live, the kindness you show without expecting anything in return, the moments where you choose courage over comfort. When you think about death, not with fear but with clarity, you realize that very few things deserve your worry, and those few things deserve your full heart. He explains that death teaches you how to live, not by creating fear, but by giving focus, not by reducing life's meaning, but by revealing life's meaning. Once you accept that everything is temporary, your achievements, your possessions, your disappointments, your fears, you begin to live with honesty. You begin to speak your truth. You begin to cherish the people you love. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You stop wasting your limited energy on meaningless conflicts. You stop holding grudges that only hurt you. You stop comparing your journey to someone else's. With this understanding, the book comes full circle. You realize that caring less is not about withdrawing from life. It's about participating in life more intelligently. It's about choosing what to care about so that your heart, mind, and energy are being invested where they can grow. You don't need 1,000 priorities. You need just a few, but they must be genuine. When your values are right, your problems become right. And when your problems are right, your life becomes right. And now, before we close this audiobook summary, let's highlight some of the strongest learnings from Mark Manson's teachings so they sink deeply into your mind and guide your future. The first major learning is that you must choose your values carefully. Your values are the invisible rules you use to measure your life. If your values are based on popularity, pleasure, or constant positivity, you will always feel lost. But if your values are based on honesty, responsibility, growth, and compassion, your life becomes peaceful and stable. Better values lead to better problems, and better problems lead to a better life. The second learning is that avoidance multiplies suffering. Whenever you avoid a difficult emotion, a difficult conversation, a difficult decision, or a difficult truth, it grows stronger. But when you face discomfort directly, you weaken its power. The path to confidence runs through discomfort, not around it. The third learning is that you always have a choice, even when you feel powerless. You may not choose your past, but you choose the meaning you give it. You may not choose the behavior of others, but you choose how you respond. You may not control outcomes, but you control your effort. This sense of responsibility is not a burden, it is freedom. The fourth learning is that failure is the path to improvement. Every skill, every career, every relationship demands mistakes. When you refuse to fail, you refuse to grow. When you take small risks every day, you build resilience. When you encourage yourself to try instead of demanding perfection, you make progress. Failure is feedback, not identity. The fifth learning is about identity and ego. The moment you believe you are special or perfect, you limit your ability to change. The moment you accept that you might be wrong, you open the door to massive learning. Humility is not weakness, it is intelligence. Curiosity is not insecurity, it is strength. The sixth learning is about boundaries. Your time and emotional space are limited. When you allow everyone to occupy them, you lose yourself. Boundaries protect your mental health. Boundaries create respect. Boundaries help you attract the right people and walk away from the wrong ones. Saying no is not rude. It is necessary. And the seventh, most powerful learning is this. Meaning comes from choosing what you are willing to struggle for. Not everything deserves your energy, your tears, or your attention. But the things that do deserve it, your health, your relationships, your dreams, your principles, deserve your full focus. Choose your struggles, and your life becomes meaningful. To close this summary, here are some action items inspired directly by the book. Practical steps you can start today to transform your mindset. Begin by identifying what truly matters to you. Pick just 3 priorities that give you purpose. Not what society expects, but what feels deeply meaningful. These 3 priorities will guide all your decisions. Next, stop trying to control how others think of you. Their opinion is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to be honest, respectful, and true to your values. Start practicing small acts of discomfort. Speak the truth kindly even when it feels uncomfortable. Set one boundary with someone close to you. Say no to something that drains your energy. Take responsibility for one situation you've been avoiding. These small steps build inner strength. Make it a habit to reflect before reacting. When an emotion feels intense, pause for a moment. Ask yourself whether the situation deserves your energy. Most things do not. Save your emotional investment for what matters. Choose one fear you have been postponing and take the smallest possible step toward facing it. Growth begins at the edge of fear, not in the middle of comfort. Every day, practice gratitude not for extraordinary moments, but for ordinary ones. A peaceful morning, a good conversation, a small achievement, a moment of rest. These simple moments are where real life happens. And finally, remind yourself that you do not have to fix everything. You do not have to be perfect. You just need to make honest choices with the time you have. Your life becomes meaningful not because you cared about everything, but because you cared deeply about the right things. As we end this audiobook summary, remember this truth. The freedom you're seeking does not come from giving up. It comes from letting go. Let go of what drains you. Let go of what controls you. Let go of what distracts you. and hold on to the values that make you peaceful, purposeful, and alive. That's all for today. We'll continue bringing you top book summaries that inspire change and reflection. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep transforming. Transform your thoughts, transform your life.